Hello again YouTube and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. I'm off to Newcastle and Storm Dara is making a mess of things. What's it going to be like driving this, trying to be efficient in the midst of a big storm? I do seem to pick the very worst weekends to do some of these trips as this storm smashes its way across Ireland and the UK, but hey, that's okay. It makes for great content. I want to be relatively efficient as always. I need to go from Edinburgh into Newcastle and then at least back as far as Addiston without charging. So on the second part of this trip, we definitely need to be efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the ts.la app shown up on screen. There was a lot of love for ts.la, and keep subscribing because I've got a new improved version of ts.la on its way. I also have a new improved version of a GoPro mount. A few comments on recent videos saying about why are you only shooting it off your iPhone? Quite simple, my old mount had broken. Now fixed, much better, let's go. Well, this is nice. The roads are absolutely and totally sodden. The rain is hammering down. And I haven't got it on auto wipers because, as usual, auto wipers is still poor. It wants to go wee, 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 wee. I haven't actually been going very far, 11 miles, and I've done 301 watt hours per mile. And part of the reason for that, is because the front motor has been on quite a bit. So you can see 29% of my use has been front motor, and that's just because it's been so slippery. We hit a puddle, it kicks the front motor in and basically says, no, we're not having that, you're going to start sliding. So it does go all-wheel drive when it's needed, which in this kind of weather is reassuring. There is so much standing water, it's hilarious. This isn't too bad, but it's been running off the fields, and in some places it is literally just pooling and you're having to pick your way through it. I hope the main roads are better than this, because otherwise this trip is going to take absolutely ages. On the A90 south of Stonehaven, as you can see, the weather is pretty poor. We are basically doing 3 miles per kilowatt hour ish, so 325 watt hours per mile. As it's pointing out, we're actually saving energy because of the wind, which is kind of blowing behind us and pushing us along, but that isn't helping because the roads are so wet and there's been a significant amount of standing water, which has been a problem. But not as much of a problem as the clip that I'm going to drop in now off dash cam of somebody driving, an absolute veteran of the EV age, a 2014 Nissan Leaf, which will still have the 24 kilowatt hour battery pack, and it's 5 degrees and it's wet, and I can absolutely understand why the guy was driving along and doing 50 miles an hour along here, because I remember just how energy sapping it was in that car, because I had a 2014 Nissan Leaf with that same battery pack, and when the weather was like this, it would drink electrons like it was going out of business. And when it doesn't have many electrons in the pack to start with, that's a problem. Happily, not a problem for me in a modern car like a Tesla Model Y. Well, that was interesting. Tesla Edinburgh with the 7-seat Model Y, which I managed to maneuver myself into the back of. Let's just say, getting out of it again, if you're over apparently 5'3", is practically impossible. I'm in the boot in a 7-seat Model Y. It's absolutely tiny. I'm not entirely convinced for the need of the rear seats, especially for a $2,500 option, but I suppose, hey, if you really want the flexibility, you can have them. You'd have to be very short sat in the back as well, because otherwise your bonce is going to be through the tailgate. But yeah, interesting. So just while we sat here, we're on 59% and now pulling, what, 85? Yeah. We were peaking at 242 when I plugged in, which is fab. So we're going to Newcastle, and it's saying I'm going to arrive on 16% There is overnight charging at the hotel at 49p a kilowatt hour, which is okay, but I'm not going to pay it when I can use superchargers for less. So what we're going to do is put a little bit more in than that, and basically give us probably enough to go to Addiston on the way back. So let's have a play with that. Okay, I've stuck that in. So if I want to be able to make it to the Addiston supercharger on the A1 on the way back, I will need to sit here and add what, another, say, -12, so another 20%, so that put me to about 82, and I'm already down on 81. That's not necessarily good. By the way, guys, this is me mulling this over for the purposes of filming. If I was a normal, I would have unplugged and gone by now, knowing I'm going to get to the hotel with plenty to plug it in overnight. Edinburgh City bypass, and this is the kind of weather where I forget about trying to drive economically. It is awful out here. Driving rain, blustery winds, which I think actually at the moment are coming in my face. And okay, it's 7 degrees, but it feels colder than that. And as you can see, there is quite a bit of standing water and being chucked up off the road by the tyres. This is basically forget about economy kind of weather. Forget it. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to find a way of driving efficiently. Don't worry about it particularly. So, since we left the Edinburgh Supercharger, we're on 309 watt hours per mile versus 331 on this Storm Dara trip in total. So we have been more efficient, but I think mainly because we're kind of rolling along in, as you can see, pretty bumpy traffic, as it always is on here. So the plan is to go the A1 route. We're going A1 past Berwick, Addiston Supercharger, where it's saying that 15 minutes will give me enough to get to Newcastle and back to Addiston again, which again, absolutely fine. Let's go and do that. This weather has not got any better. We've had a couple of little bits where it's cleared, but it's been significant amounts of wind in the face ever since we've left Edinburgh. So we've done 332 watt hours per mile, so 3 miles per kilowatt hour, which is poor. It really is. But then again, it's basically been the same the entire trip thanks to Storm Dara. Anyway, we're approaching the supercharger at Addiston, where basically we're going to top the tanks off to be able to get down to Newcastle and basically back again. So it saves me having to faff around with expensive destination charging, where having read up in it again on Zap Map, because it's underneath the hotel, effectively underground, it's got poor phone signal, which makes it a pain in the bum to be able to use. So we'll avoid that one, but we'll have a look at it when we get there. Anyway, we have got the joy of the Purdy Lodge to greet us as we come in here. I believe they have now put a big crash barrier up behind the superchargers to stop them being demolished by trucks, which was needed. Let's have a look, because yeah, these have been knocked silly quite a few times. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick it onto 1A over there. Doesn't help that you've got this great big pole which is kind of in the way, but at least they are here. You know what, this car really does have the turning circle of a super tanker, especially when you've got a pole that you need to maneuver in. Anyway, let's see what speed we get as we plug it in. Okay, we are plugged in and ramping up, and having to stabilize the camera because the whole car is shaking. I'm going to come out in a second, but just to show you, I've plugged straight in. These are V3 chargers, and we're going to basically go pretty much up towards what, 180? Yeah, a little bit more than that. But the reason why the car is shaking, it is windy woo. It really is windy woo. And yeah, they put these concrete blocks here because they're getting splattered by trucks who are reversing. That's what the storm's doing to the roof. the Supercharger's down here. Good grief. This, so I'm sat here in the car, and the car is shaking, absolutely physically shaking, being battered by the wind blowing at me from over in that direction. This storm is fun, although so far at least, we haven't had any major problems with actually getting somebody, I don't know, crashed or trees fallen over or something like that. But blimey. And this is what it's like on the trailing edge. What must it have been like on the leading edge as it was smashing into Ireland and Wales? It's day 2. I have been parked here in this basement in Newcastle for best part of a day. The car's on 49%, and you think, that looks okay to get back to Edinburgh, but Storm Dara is still having fun. And this time the wind is going to be coming straight at us from the north, so that's not going to help. So we're going to go back up the A1 again to Addiston again, get blown around again, and see how we get on. On the A1 north of Newcastle, heading due north, and the wind is absolutely pounding me in the face. I can feel it, I can hear it, the car is twitching. From an energy use perspective, this isn't going to be pretty, albeit at the moment we are preconditioning for the top off at Addiston, and it is kind of a top off. I'm going to arrive on, well, it says 13%, get just enough in there to get back to Edinburgh where we can do a proper stop, because Addiston is the middle of nowhere really. But with the energy use being already pretty high on the way down at 3 miles per kilowatt hour, what was it, 330 or something, 328, it's going to be much worse on the way back. If the wind is going to keep blowing straight at us, and it does say strong winds forecasted from the north, you're not kidding. If it carries on blowing at us like this, our efficiency could be entertainingly poor. So look, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. In a petrol or diesel car, if the wind is blowing in your face, you have exactly the same problem, right? It's just basic physics. You have got massive wind resistance, which means that you have to work harder to cut through it, which means that you burn more energy. It's just that in a petrol or diesel car, you've probably got longer range than an electric car. So these are just a little bit more sensitive to it. But from a practical perspective, it doesn't really matter, because Newcastle doesn't have any superchargers. I was going there and back to Addiston anyway, so fine. And it just means you'll burn a few more percent getting through. But I can feel the car twitching. Yeah, happy joy. Right, on my way to Addiston, and to quote Bjorn Nyland, holy macaroni. So I've put the energy use charts up. So my 30-mile average, 460 watt hours per mile, 15 miles 422, 5 miles 538 kilowatt hours per mile, right? Sorry, watt hours, not kilowatt hours. Good grief, that would be silly. 515 watt hours per mile now. This is crackers. I have never seen numbers like this. This is absolutely headlong into the wind, blatting out energy out of the battery pack like it's going out of business. That is amazing. I mean, wow. Right? That is a car being blatted around by the wind and using ridiculous amounts of energy. So there it is, Storm Dara having its fun. It wasn't pretty yesterday, and today it's mostly blowing in my face, at least on this phase of the trip. And yeah, that's exceptional. Update for you. I'm about to come to Addiston at the Supercharger, and according to this, there's 15 minutes wait. 15 minutes for charging. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really want to sit around. Big branch, blown off the tree. I don't really want to sit around for 15 minutes. So we're going to go and have a look. But what I suspect we're going to do is bin it off and then carry on up the road. There's chargers in Berwick, which I can definitely make. I mean, I'm an 18%, so I can make Berwick. But let's go and have a look and just see how bad it actually is. Oh, hang on. I don't know why we're all indicating here. I'm following these guys in front. Okay, so here's the services coming up again with the Superchargers. Let's see how bad it is. And when we came here yesterday, remember that the wind was literally ripping the roof off the thing. And there's quite a few tree branches have blown down. I don't remember seeing those yesterday. So it's saying 15 minutes wait for a charge. Well, it looks quite busy, and that's just from back here. But I don't know. Maybe it's not as bad as you think it might be. Only one way to find out. They're not actually all full. Unless he's charging wrong side. He's charging wrong side. Sorry, I'm going back into that. He's charging wrong side, that's the problem. I've come inside just to shelter from the wind a minute. Here's a question for you. Tesla Superchargers that are open to all. Should wrong side chargers, like this Kia next to us, be banned from V3 stalls where they don't reach? Simple question, yes or no? I'm now first in the queue, and there are 3 other cars also in the queue. This is getting painful. I'm almost glad that I got here when I did, but genuinely there are 3 other cars now over there as well as myself, and I've already identified to the guy at the front of the line of parked cars waiting that I'm not charging because the guy next to me is wrong side charging. This is painful. As you can see, I am plugged in and taking 189 kilowatts. That's good. I am literally only going to put enough in to get me up the road to this new EV on the move charger, which is to the east of Edinburgh. This is one of the new non-Tesla chargers, which is actually part of the Tesla network, the same as anybody else's. And I'm doing that because there are still 2 cars back there. Another one's just been able to plug in, but basically we're really busy. So I'm literally going to put in enough to get me onto 10% as I get there. That'll do. I'll only be here for like 5 minutes, I think, something like that. So queue time was 8 minutes, which isn't too bad, and I spent most of that doing little video clips, but it's still an 8-minute queue, which I didn't really need, but hey, that's okay. That's probably quicker than going to Berwick and then sitting there on the Instavolt and paying £1 million, and also then having to wait for an hour because, I don't know, we've got a Vauxhall Corsa or something charging slowly on it. This is still better. So the ironic thing about that Supercharger stop is I got there and there was a charger unit free, except that it wasn't free because you had the Kia EV6 charging on the right side, which is the wrong side, and blocking 2 bays. You then had a further 3 Teslas join a queue, and in essence we were all waiting for the Kia. So there was a Polestar who went, there was another Model Y who went fairly quickly, so I went from my blocked stall onto one that wasn't blocked and was plugged in. The guy who had arrived and I was chatting to, he plugged in onto that one, and then the Kia guy came back and realized that he had a couple of people staring daggers at him, and he shifted his car, and of course then both of the remaining waiting cars were able to plug in at the same time, having had the bay blocker shift out of the way. And very quickly, you went from having 4 cars in a queue to, as I was unplugging, there were 2 bays free. So even there, where there's only 6 stalls, and it said 20 minutes wait on arrival when I got there, I was there for less than 10 minutes before plugging in, and the queue that briefly formed didn't last very long before not only had the entire queue been cleared, but then there were 3 bays. So from my experience, and this is, as I said, the second time that I have had to queue, from my experience, it's just the luck of the draw getting to a busy charging location as to whether you're going to end up in a queue, as those guys were, or had you arrived 15 minutes later, you'd get there and find 2 bays free. It is just kind of like that, but hey, what can you do? On the M90 through Fife, and it is 20 past 3 in the afternoon, and we have entered golden hour. The light is already starting to refract, making the place look quite pretty. We are still burning 3 miles per kilowatt hour, although to be fair, that is almost an improvement on where we were. I did stop at the new not Tesla Supercharger, and you might say, what's a not Tesla Supercharger? Well, a couple of little clips put into here, but you will have to watch the next video to understand what that experience is. So that was literally just a top off to get me to Dundee, a quick charge in Dundee, and then that will get me home. But yeah, the wind has been pretty spectacular, and I'm not ordinarily burning this much power on a long trip. So 447 miles into my Storm Dara road trip, and we have done 347 watts per mile, watt hours per mile. That is a lot. That's an awful lot. And I kept waiting for it to drop, and it just isn't, because the wind still isn't dropping either, despite the fact that the storm by now is well out into the North Sea. But we're still getting the absolute trailing edge of it, and it's still blowing a hoolie. I've just plugged in at the Supercharger here in Dundee, and it's actually reasonably quiet. I don't normally come here because it can get busy, but look, it's pulling 147, which is basically the top speed of these V2 chargers, and it's going to keep sucking that for a little while, which is good. Arrived on 31%, but look down here, 337 watt hours per mile. Oh, I don't know why the camera keeps jumping. 337 watt hours per mile since we set off from the last charge stop, and yeah, 346. You can see on the energy chart 339 watt hours per mile, and we're still doing like your 337. So it's not been particularly efficient, but that is entirely because of this wind, which has just been absolutely howling in my face. I think it's calming down now, which is good. So we're just going to basically stop here, get enough in the car to be able to get home, and that'll be the end of this. I have just arrived back home, and as you can see, the overall trip is pretty consistent. So 346. That is definitely more than we started with this morning. So as I was speculating, having the wind blatting in your face is not good for efficiency. And if we put the charts back on again, 311 watt hours per mile average over the last 30. Not particularly pretty, but hey, never mind. It's been a fun experiment. Just how bad is it in the wind? Bad is the answer. Pretty bad. And so there it is, guys. If you found this trip to be interesting, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button. That's really important and helps boost the channel. And I will see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.